That we're coming before you so late this evening, but I did call the meeting to order at around 6:32 this evening, but we've been dealing with some non-public agenda items. Excuse me, 6:02, and we've been dealing with some non-public agenda items. So at this time, we never did our pledge. If you could all please stand the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It does. Welcome to those of you who are joining us from home, and welcome to those of you who came out here this evening. Public participation at this time? Yes.
Lynch Tanner. This is not, my papers here are not as bad as it looks, I promise you. I timed it, it's only about 3 minutes. But I did want to thank you for putting your last meeting on Channel 25. I was able to catch Pat in the morning and Pat in the afternoon, so it was good. Thank you very much for getting that on Channel 25, I appreciate it. And I also want to say that I watched the first half hour of the Selectmen meeting tonight, and I'll catch more of it later. So my thoughts that I have that I'm going to share with you tonight, and also I'll be sharing with the Selectmen and the Budget Committee as well. They'll vary a little bit because time will be a little different. So I just wanted to share the following thoughts with you. And based on some things that I heard in that half hour at the Selectmen meeting tonight, this follows right in line nicely. My comments are meant to be general in nature. They are not directed toward a specific individual or committee. When I use the word community, I'm referring to both town and school. This time of year, many people send out holiday cards, which often includes a Happy New Year sentiment. I would like to extend the same wish and hope to every board and committee in our community. I have lived in Farmington for almost 16 years, and I've watched many meetings. In January 2018, I decided to attend as many meetings as possible. My goal was, and still is, to educate myself about town and school operations. For some time, I have sensed a level of animosity between our town, which includes the Budget Committee, and our school. Why is that? Is the problem due just to a lack of constructive communication, or are there other factors? In any case, how sad. Given the climate in our country, people seem very quick to deal with a situation with a negative, confrontational response. Just watch the evening nightly news for many examples. Isn't it a sad commentary on our community when we feel safety measures need to be put in place at a local meeting? Sadly, I'm not surprised. When emotions run high and tensions escalate, do we really know how people around us will react? Again, very sad. At several meetings, again, I'm speaking of the community now, emotions tend to escalate in an unpleasant way, and tensions make discussion and compromise difficult. I'm not naive. People disagree. Some, or maybe everyone listening and really hearing to my viewpoints will disagree with me, and that's okay. But I am entitled to my opinion just like everyone else. We still have the right in this country, despite what we might hear, we can disagree, but let's try to do so in a civil manner. I'm not an expert, but I know there are constructive and destructive ways to communicate. I would encourage everyone to look back at town and school meetings. Many times, it is not what is being said that prompts confrontation. Words and tone of voice can either enhance or destroy communication. For some people, the minute the word "you" is placed at the beginning of a sentence, the person on the receiving end often reacts in a defensive response, and any hope of a positive exchange ends. So I'm asking all committee members to take a breath and consider how words and tone of voice might be heard by another person. The community is spending a lot of time, energy, and money in a revitalization plan. How about such a plan for our elected and appointed board and committee members? Am I suggesting new people? Absolutely not. And I'll say that again, absolutely not. I am hoping we can leave 2018 behind and approach 2019 with a true and sincere effort to achieve a positive, congenial atmosphere. When I have asked to speak with Superintendent Vaughn and Town Administrator Capello, they have both been willing to meet with me and answer my questions. The school board, selectmen, and budget committee have all allowed me to ask questions. We need to stop using lawyers to get answers that should come easily. I would encourage residents to get the facts, to seek accurate answers. Do not rely on social media. It is my understanding that social media, because I'm not a part of that, can be very negative. So I ask, why do people participate? Why can't this negativity be turned around? What is so difficult about sharing positive thoughts and observations? Is it because people find the negative side of life more interesting? Very sad if that is true. Thank you all for allowing me this time, and I do wish everyone happy holidays and a happy new year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You as well.
Any other public participation? Okay, we'll go into approval of minutes. Minutes of May 21st, 2018, public session.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran,
Second.
second by Mrs. McElhenney. Discussion? Can you refresh me why they're on here? Why we're going back so
Do you have any
far?
record of them being approved?
Really, just got missed. Interesting.
I think it was one of those tabled and got
Yeah.
missed.
Okay. No discussion on these? All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes of May 31st, 2018, non-public session 1.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Moran,
Second.
second by Mrs. Cardinal. Discussion on these? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
The last paragraph has a motion of passing 3-0. Is that a typo? Or did two people leave? Or did they abstain? It was,
Oh, that's right,
there's
it's
5
got
people here, it was
comment.
5-1, and then it was 3-0. Is that true? Shouldn't it be 3-0-2 if everybody stayed, or did people leave?
It wouldn't be
should say?
unanimous.
Right.
Right, or it
So
should
did
signify that somebody
people
left.
leave? Does anybody remember? Because it doesn't say anybody left.
Right. Maybe there only be 3, and I wrote those.
And actually,
they
in
voted
each,
just previous to that 5-0.
Right.
so
So-
it was more than likely 5-0.
I wonder if it's a typo, that's all I was questioning.
Well, the public
Yeah, it was
session,
5-0.
the public session votes are all 3-0.
Interesting.
I really messed those up.
So let's
Maybe we table
revisit,
them. Yeah, table them, I need to revisit my scratch notes.
well, let's just revisit and change them to 5. If it's just a typo, we were all here. And if it says unanimous,
What Ms. Vaughn's saying is the public session.
The
Also
Public
three
session,
individuals
I'll
individuals
say
here.
3-0, but it
But
says
5
Mr.
people
Shagnon
here.
called the meeting to order. The only one that's not mentioned by name in the minutes is
me.
Mrs. Moran, and she is listed as present, so I think it's safe to
Alright.
say it's 5-0 across the board.
Okay.
I didn't notice.
You feel comfortable voting on these then?
Yes.
So, sorry, we'll have to...
I'd rather table them because I'm just thinking that it was a holiday weekend. I probably wasn't here.
Okay.
Let's just go back and look at
Table
them.
them, table all the minutes from May 31st.
Yeah.
We'll have to, okay, we'll look
Okay.
at those. A motion by Mrs. Moran to table the minutes from May 31st, all sessions.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cardinal. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And now we're jumping up to August 13th, public session.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran,
Second.
second by Mrs. Cardinal. Discussion on these? Hearing none,
Sh- Just minor, it should, so that they could meet Miss Loughton, not
Mhm.
meeting.
hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor as amended?
Aye.
And I will abstain as I was absent that evening. Okay. Minutes from November 19th, 2018, public session.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran, second by Ms. McElhenney. Discussion on these.
Did you get the spelling error there? That name? Somebody highlighted the name.
Yeah,
Those are mine.
I made some corrections. Did you get all the corrections?
Yes.
Is one of them this?
No, it was,
One of them was the name, the other one was watching from home. I don't know what the note is, but it's highlighted.
Where?
A while since I've had to spell it.
If you turn it sideways, you can see
Oh,
the
let's see.
colors.
It does. Yeah.
So,
no,
In,
mine was.
in the others present, Mrs. LaFave's name is spelled slightly incorrectly.
sorry.
BV instead of VB. Others? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor as amended?
Aye.
And I'm going to abstain as I was absent from that meeting. November 19th, 2018, non-public session 1.
Move to approve.
Moved to approve by Mrs. Cardinal, second by Ms. McElhenney. Discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
November 26th has already been approved at our last meeting, it was
Sure.
actually,
Right.
Yes.
so we can go past those.
We can jump down to December 3rd, public session, 2018.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Cardinal, second by Ms. McElhenney. Discussion on these.
Right.
Oh, this
You guys
was
all
the
set?
spelling on Zawacki, I don't know how to spell it.
That's right.
No E.
Is that right?
W.
Yeah, no E. Anything else? All set? All set over there, folks? I wasn't sure if you saw something.
Health for non-teachers? And
Where are
Yeah,
we?
that was one of my
then
corrections.
public participation?
Yeah.
It says health for no teachers. You want it to say non. And then and down under public participation, I believe it should be September 10th. I just said September. It should be December 10th.
December. And I just agreed with you.
Anything else?
I just had a question. On page 4 of 6, when I asked about the stipends and then about course reimbursements are not contractual and were not brought forward on the default budget, is that correct?
Course reimbursements for district administrators were not
Okay,
contractual.
we may want to put that in there just to keep it, because otherwise people will go through the budget and see that there were some in there.
Right.
And also on that page, I just found, motion by Mrs. Cardinal to increase line 767 through 771 to $1. Just should the
Okay,
the
yes.
$1 be in there?
Yes. And I would say too that on the default budget, the district administrators line for course reimbursements that was under 2210 was not included in the default budget, but there was a line that had been funded this year for $3,000, and we are allowed to carry that forward and that is in the default budget, and that's under the SAU budget. So there is a small line in there, but it's not the full funding.
Do we want to refer to Mrs. Tanner as a representative or just a town resident?
Resident, yeah.
Yeah, it says representative. It's just that in the future, somebody could almost think that it might be a state representative that represents the town or something, you know? You're getting a promotion.
We're going to give you an honorary position.
Happy to help you run for it.
Okay, all those in favor as amended? Yeah. December 3rd, 2018, non-public session, why do I have, oh yeah, one, okay, sorry.
Two, did we resume one?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Ms. McElhenney, second by Mrs. Moran. Discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Non-public session 2 from December 3rd, 2018.
So,
So moved by Mrs. Moran,
Second.
second by Ms. McElhenney. Discussion on these?
yeah, I think there needs to be a little more detail in there, because
That was
we
your-
must have had discussion, so no discussion.
We talked about something.
Yeah.
We had to have talked about something. We didn't talk about, did we just go in and out?
Actually,
Yeah.
this was where you did not,
Oh,
because
okay.
we pushed it
All
back
right.
to this week, so.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Right, so
Thank you.
there was none.
All those
So
in
there was no
favor?
discussion.
Aye. So we did go in. Okay.
No.
Non-public session 3 from December 3rd, 2018.
So moved.
Oh,
Motion by Mrs. Cardinal, second by Mrs. Moran. Discussion on these? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes of December,
We did them all, didn't we?
oh, why do I have the 10th?
I don't have,
We don't have the minutes for the 10th yet.
Okay.
oh, I uploaded them, yes.
Pending appendix, it says, here it is.
I uploaded them yesterday, so if there's
I
going to be for
apologize.
yesterday.
Pending
Since
appendix.
they're on the agenda, why don't we table them?
yep.
Do I have a motion to table? So moved by Ms. McElhenney, second by Mrs. Cardinal. All those in favor?
Aye.
New business, acceptance of Chromebook gift.
I have, as is my purview by board permission, accepted a generous gift of a Chromebook. It is valued at under $500, so I've accepted that on behalf of the district, but wanted to bring that to your attention at a regularly scheduled board meeting, and it is on the agenda as needs to be by policy. We have had a Chromebook with the protection plan donated to the robotics team by the PAC Network. And so we'd like to say thank you. And I do have the particulars on the order if you'd like to see those.
We all have.
Which you don't
Yes,
need
yeah.
a vote, you're just.
I don't need a vote, I
Can we
need to
send
inform
thank you
you.
cards when we get donations?
Yes.
Okay.
and- yeah,
That would be really
Yes.
Those handy postcards.
Actually, they're almost gone.
Really?
Yes.
In the order? I'll
Yeah.
see if I can get another coupon.
Next item is firewall bids.
Yes. Been using them for parent notifications.
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
that's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you open the packet up, I just want to explain a little bit of what you're going to see in the packet. Because my first bid,
We're going to need you to go to a microphone. Do you want to
Yep.
sit here with me? That way you've got a mic here, or you can go there, either way. Okay.
the first bid that I did, there were some concerns that were raised by Ms. Cardinal, and that led me to believe that I needed to go back and revisit the process that I was using and looking at bids and how we address them, especially with the technology department. So when you open up the packet, on the left-hand side, if you'd like to go ahead and do so now, I'll start with the left, you will see I went out immediately that week when we had already opened it, but no one had responded. I went out to 6 different vendors and let them know that we had gone through the language and updated the language on the website to make sure it's very clear of the hybrid process. And if you go behind that email, you will see that we have highlighted in bold and in red the updated language to include either or, electronic or sealed through regular mail transit. There will be a cross-out of the date from November 30th to December 3rd because two of the vendors, I believe, contacted Mark and just asked instead of Friday if we could extend it to the following Monday. I didn't have a problem with it, so he updated on there and he updated it on the website. So you'll go through and you'll see that I updated that language to be very clear, including if I had an example. This is just an example of a firewall that has all these specifications I'm looking for. It does not have to be that brand or that firewall. So I try to be very, very clear. I think it's even in bold just to make sure, because I want it to be very important that we're able to very fairly evaluate the different vendors. The other thing that I did is I included in there a very clear list of items, not just in the paragraph, but in table format towards the end of it. And you will see I have an email that went out again to the vendors to let them know that these are the things we're looking at. The last email on that left-hand side is because upon receiving the bids that came in, and we had 3 reviews, and I'll talk about the review process we used, I felt that some of them, to be fairly evaluated apples to apples, we needed to go out and have some clarifying questions, because I'm not sure some just did not see some of the information, or for whatever the I just wanted to make sure we fairly evaluated them apples to apples. And you can see just an example of an email that went out to all 6 vendors. This is what we're looking for, this is the table to make sure you have filled out, and so forth. Okay, on the other side of your packet, before, there's one more piece of paper that I missed there, very important, I'm so sorry, on the left-hand side, is one thing that I thought was a much more transparent way of reviewing a bid that comes in is to have a rubric, a scoring rubric, so that when you have a review team, it's very clear on what you are evaluating, the product, the solution, whatever it is. Some of it I did include in that scoring rubric, that if you are following all the requests and the language and requirements of our bid process, we're asking you for that certificate of liability. And if you do all of those things, I believe you should have credit for that, because you put in all of those items we're requesting that we need. So that was part of it, the bid language, but also all those items that were clearly spelled out on the table on the end of the RFP itself. Now, this is the first time we've done this, so I wanted to start out with doing, I'm not saying this is something that has to be set in stone the way it is, but I would like to look at having a process where a scoring rubric such as this, doesn't have to be this one, would be part of a process that we might put into something like a governance plan. So that's just something that I think, and I think it's also the vendors would appreciate knowing that there's this fair, transparent process they can see in the background. We had a number of points, and all 3 reviewers all scored separately. If there was a question, we clarified the answer, and we tallied the points across. Now, on the right-hand side, I'm sorry, now you can see the summary of what each vendor brought forward. And at the bottom, you see the average score of the 3 reviewers. Yes, we have the review that each of us did, but we averaged them at the bottom so that you can see what was the average of the 3 different reviewers, and it had to be at least 3, and exactly what we were scoring them on and so forth, and just the summary of overall what each of the different vendors brought. We had 4 very good bids from 4 different vendors out of the 6. And each of the more expanded information is behind that color-coded. Optiv is in purple, RTM is in blue, Firewalls.com, who only sell their Sonic Wall right now, is, I think, like in this taupe color, and then Connection in pink. And at the back of every single one of those is that table where I asked for that specific information so that we could clearly compare apples to apples, and we could clearly review each vendor fairly. So, coming into the bid process, I will admit to you, my favorite, if it was all bid on my favorite firewall, Palo Alto is one of my favorites, but that's not how we can fairly defend the decision on looking at the firewall. So instead, I broke down very clearly the different things that the reviewers looked at, brought together to the different scores. So if you want to go ahead and take a minute on that, because there's just a little bit of information. And some included a lot of marking materials too, but I wanted to have everything in there for you. A couple I printed back to back, so they're a little thinner. In the back of each of those sections, you will see where I sent out the exact clarifying questions to each vendor, the email that I sent out, and copied to both Mark and Ruth Ellen at the time. On the summary sheet, if something is gray, that means it was something that they just simply had not included, not part of it, or very, very limited in what they offered related to it. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't see you.
Is your recommendation to go with RTM with the 3-year of support?
Yes, I feel like that, and it's not a multi-year, I made sure of that, it's not a multi-year, so for a warrant, it is just, you're buying the 3 years, you're not stuck in a 3-year, right, absolutely. I'll admit, if it was just scoring, I was very close with Optiv and RTM. I hadn't thought of Barracuda as an option at the time. We do have Barracuda for our backup appliances. It's just something at the time, and that's part of why we have the bid process is sometimes it opens your eyes to something you hadn't thought of, and I hadn't. Optiv was the one I was looking at, so I had them very, very close. It's just that RTM surprised me by coming in with a really solid overall support, network design, solid pricing structure. Optiv has a good product as well, but their pricing was much higher for each item. And you can see the strengths of each one, what each of them did, and I think it's very clear in the summary sheet. Yes.
Move to award the bid to RTM in the amount of $24,719.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Cardinal, second by who?
Me?
By Mrs. Moran. Discussion?
I
Yes.
just had a question. The thing I had mentioned last time as well was verification of insurance. I see
Yes.
here it now has to be 5 days after if they don't have insurance.
We have it on file, they did get it to us instantly, and that's why, one part, I didn't score them very high, because I reminded them that we need, that's what I mentioned, that if you are someone who put all those pieces in there, well, I believe it's important to give you credit for that. So Connection was instant with it, I scored them very high on that, but RTM, we do have it, and we do have it on file. Yes. I made sure to attend to that, too.
And I will mention too, just for clarity, when we went back out to the different bidders for clarification, each one had something different that we needed clarified, so they all had an opportunity to give us back information, so.
And each one of them did, every single one of them came right back with the information. It was mostly so that we could fairly compare apples to apples, because a lot of times they interpret our language, and sometimes it's just maybe I'm not being clear, so I think it was important to make sure it was very clear so they understood what we were looking for, and that makes it a lot easier to have the review team evaluate.
And score it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Just feedback?
Yeah.
This is excellent.
Okay.
I am very impressed with the thoroughness of going back out and redoing the request for proposal. I so appreciate that. And just the fact that all bidders knew which rubric you were going to be using, what your expectations were, and how high your bar is amazing. And I love this example for, I know it would be very time consuming, but maybe at a certain dollar limit, we go to this extent on every single request for proposal.
I think it's important because it concerned me last time with the concerns that you had, and I went, you know what? If she has these concerns, then I need to come back because I'm not looking at this. And it's a learning process for me. It was my first bid, and so I went back. And what I did is I went out to states that have rubrics in place or suggested best practice rubrics for their technology RFPs. In the state of New York, their Office of Controller actually had a rubric that they use. They have a full evaluation tool. You can go online and look at ours is specific to us. I did not use their tool because theirs was specific to them. And I think the rubric shouldn't be too confining. I think it should be a tool you have, but it should bend and flex depending on what the item is that you're looking at. And it should just be, make sure it's aligned to what is in the RFP. I think it would be something that could be posted online. I didn't want to post the rubric until you had all seen it for the first time, and that would be something that I could look into, especially as we talk about things like governance plans and so forth.
I'll just
Thank
pipe
you
in and
very
say thank
much.
you for your thoroughness. That was
Absolutely.
excellent.
Yeah, and anyone on the team that helped with this, thank you very much.
Warrants.
And you know what? I did not include that in here. So the warrants that we are looking at, that we had last week, those haven't changed. There were some suggestions that were brought forward during the budget presentation process. So looking to see if those are warrants that you would like to entertain. There have been suggestions that we add to the bus lease. The bus are.
Capital reserve.
Yeah,
Capital reserve, so that we're not leasing. Suggestions that we look at some additional, general securities type of capital reserve moving forward in the future. Looking to see what your thoughts are, what else you would like to add there.
When do we have to, what's our deadline on?
Our deadline is into January, so we have
A meeting.
one more meeting.
So I took a look at what the suggestions were at the Budget Committee presentation, and then, of course, the ones we've discussed all throughout the year. And I think your draft that you have right now, this is my personal opinion, I think that's enough questions for the ballot. We need to balance the number of questions we're asking voters to decide on. If it becomes too cumbersome, then, you might run into a challenge of not winning people over on the ones that we do have on the ballot. So I do like all of those for future year, whether next year or the one after. I think that we should consider that as part of our CIP development as well. Another one I'd like to add in a future year
Okay.
is to start a CRF for gymnasium improvements. And that's to start putting some unexpended fund balance, or undesignated fund balance, unassigned fund balance, all those three words.
Unexpended.
In future years, get the voters okay to do that and start tucking some away based on when we're going to need to replace the Henry Wilson
floors.
floor. And by setting up that CRF and having a small amount put away each year, we also would open up any sort of community contributions, seeing as that is a community gym as well. That would set us up with a nice structured way to receive any sort of contributions that folks might want to make.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Can we add that to the buildings and grounds renovations for Henry Wilson? We already have.
We can.
Can we add it to the
Yeah.
purpose?
That could be,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, great,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And actually, I think it would be generally included in the purpose already.
Oh,
Because it covers renovations and repairs and improvements. So
excellent,
we're probably already covered there.
yeah. I don't
So if anyone
anticipate
wants to
we're
make a
gonna have
donation.
money left. Yeah.
Okay. And
Great.
along the lines with the security grant, I did get notification this afternoon, and I got a voicemail, and we've played phone tag so far, but I was contacted by an individual from the DOE that they are opening up a new cohort of security grantees. They're looking for schools that will participate in training toward getting safety certifications and security pieces in place. They're waiting for the final approval to go through governor and council, which is kind of how it goes. But they're looking at probably about $12,000 to $13,000 a year for 3 years, each year for 3 years.
Excellent.
So I quickly phoned back and said, thank you, let me know what the details are. So I will, as I have more information, I will share that with you, but some possibilities there too that will kind of augment what we're looking to do with the physical plant with training and be able to continue what we've started. We've already done some work with the admin team with Homeland Security. A couple of weeks ago, they came in and met with the admin team and went through some other pieces. They've met with the staff at Valley View, and we're looking at continuing to work on our training as well to make sure that we're ready for what we hope we never need to use.
Yes, exactly.
Anything else on warrants? But I had this, we asked this to be a standing
Yes.
item, so I put down budget committee rep report. I don't know if you have anything, but.
Just some feedback on how the presentation went last Wednesday. Folks that were present, in the audience have given some feedback directly to me as the rep. They thought that it was very thoughtful, very well organized in terms of tying back to the strategic plan and the higher reaching goals by that. There was a suggestion to, when rehearsing the presentations, put some time limits on each section so that it doesn't build up into quite so long of a presentation. But other than that, it was very thorough, and folks really appreciated the level of detail that they got to enjoy. And then from our last meeting, the update I provided in terms of the non-meeting that happened, I did get some questions in, at the start of the public portion of the presentation, the posted meeting. And then I went to the select board meeting for their opening tonight and got to ask some additional clarifying questions. So I think there's going to be some food for thought in terms of where the boundaries between select board and authorizing use of town resources like town council for the budget committee, where the town administrator's role plays into the two, and of course, trying to figure out a way where if there is a situation where school board rep may have a conflict of interest, letting that individual decide that it is a conflict of interest as opposed to that decision being forced on them. So I think there'll be some good information should the select board, budget committee, and school board hold a workshop to try to iron some of these details out. One comment that I received at select board relative to budget committee is that it seems to all come down to communication. So we can look at that.
When's the next regularly scheduled meeting? December 26th, 27th?
26th.
It's the Wednesday.
Wednesday, it's the day after
Day after
Christmas.
Christmas.
Yep.
Boxing Day.
So that's a regularly scheduled meeting. Normally superintendent hasn't been coming to regularly scheduled meetings only when the new budget is on the agenda. But we said
I will be
probably
attending.
some questions. She, offered that to bring any questions on the newly proposed school board adopted budget and default budget and draft warrant articles to that December 26th meeting. So hopefully we can iron some items out before the hearing in January, the public hearing. Any questions for me to bring back to budget committee meeting, or?
I expect they will respond to our request for a sit-down at that time. Have we heard back from anybody else?
We did get a response. Mr. Capello responded and said that it was brought up at their last meeting, that there would be some interest in sitting down with us. They did not feel that there was necessarily a reason for a facilitator.
I just have a question. It came up in the budget meeting that there was a discrepancy between what the town recorded that they paid to the school and what the school recorded that they received. Did you ever get an answer back in regards to that?
No, I expect one at the December 26th meeting, though, or at least when it'll be cleared up if they can't do it for that date.
Okay. I was just curious.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Anything else from the board?
I do have manifests.
Any other public participation? Okay,
Nice.
sure, of course.
Always.
Just something really small. I wanted to share at the Christian McAuliffe Technology Conference, if it's not known, that not only did Brian Shagnon and the video production students get to present a great presentation where they had tons of people come up and ask questions, but they also were able to participate as the actual video production crew for the conference that day. And they did an amazing job. They got such great feedback from different school districts and leaders, and today they received some very nice thank you gift cards from the NHSAA, thanking them for their work. So I just wanted to share that, and Mr. Shagnon back there did a wonderful job. It was so great to have them. I had brought in districts from other school districts, and they did an amazing job, so I just wanted to add that.
Wonderful, thank you.
When I saw their presentation at the conference, it was awesome. I'll second that.
I would remind folks, since this is our last meeting, really, of our last school board meeting of
2018?
this year. But I would like to remind you that we are hosting the annual Mike Lee Holiday Basketball Bash. This is the 40th anniversary edition this year. We have 19 teams coming. One of the local high schools, unfortunately, was able to field a team, so to speak, if I can use the word field for basketball, but unfortunately they didn't have enough numbers. But 19 teams still makes our tournament the largest holiday tournament in the state, and all those people will be descending upon Farmington from the 26th through the 30th. So if you'd like to come up and check out some fun basketball games, we'd love to have you.
I hope the local businesses are ready.
I know, right?
That's a lot of people coming.
Our next regularly scheduled meeting is January 7th, 2019. So as we sign off tonight, I'd like to take a moment to wish our community and those of you who watch and support our schools and watch our meetings and come to our meetings a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. We hope that you have some good time with your family and friends, because that's really what it's all about. Thank you for those of you who viewed tonight and those of you who came out. I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public session 4 under 91A:3, A, B, and C for personnel. So moved by Mr. Frieda and second by Ms. McElhenney. All those in favor, I roll.
Aye.
Good night, folks, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
Thank you.